Is your summer look?
Well, good evening. It is July 17th. We're here for the Finance Committee. We'll go ahead and begin with roll call.
Mayor St. John.
Here.
Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mr. Ayer.
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
Mr. Grumney.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mrs. Cooper. Here. 7 present.
All right, thank you. We have the minutes from the June 18th meeting before us, and any questions or concerns about the minutes that are posted?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. And get a second?
So,
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't refer to Ms. Cooper anywhere, whether she was here or absent or anything.
Okay.
I don't remember if she was, but she's not listed.
She was.
She was here.
Yep, I'll add that. Thank you.
Okay.
We know for sure.
thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay.
No offense taken.
Roll call.
Mayor St. John.
Here, yes.
Mr. Ayer.
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
Mr. Neff.
Yes.
Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
7 yeas.
Okay, that moves us right into new business. And it looks like we have OpenGov update. The tool is helping us with a lot of our documentation. So I think I'll turn it over here. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to provide the council with an update on where we stand with OpenGov. As you may recall, this was approved to purchase back in March. And we've been having weekly meetings with the OpenGov team, me being myself and Alex. And these have been going on weekly since April 2nd. We do have a public portal right now it's in the testing phase. And I did list the URL so that you could all go there if you like. Just to take a gander and see what it looks like at this point. It's not live. It does say live public portal, but it's not live. You are free to go in there and it will prompt you to create an account and log in, which you should do anyway, because if you want to look at any of the activity in there, you will have to have an account. Same goes for the public. They will have to create an account to log in to make any type of requests or look at any data. So feel free to do that in your free time if you like. The applications that we have currently being tested are residential zoning certificate, code violation, commercial sign permit, fence permit, commercial and industrial zoning certificate, variance application, and a right-of-way permit. 3 of those I have listed with Alex's name in parentheses. Those are ones that Alex himself has basically created himself. The others were created by OpenGov. And all my hats off to Alex because he's done a really great job understanding how the code is established and how to create these processes. He's taken the bull by the horns and really taken it and created his own processes within OpenGov. So that is something that we are allowed to do. We have freedom to do that within the system. So I really give him the kudos for taking the initiative and doing that. We are testing all of these processes right now. So within the portal, which I provide the link for, you can look and see what's in there, but there's another workflow portal that Alex and I have access to where we do other testing. So just to give you kind of a background of what we're doing currently. Tasks that we've completed so far, we've set up the Stripe account. Stripe is their form of payment. Basically, it's like their payment provider. So we run everything through Stripe, and then Stripe sends all of the money to our bank account. We also have a financial interface with Civica CMI and OpenGov that's established and ready to go. So all of the revenues and receipts that we receive that are paid through OpenGov, either by credit card, will automatically be posted to the general ledger through an interface. To be completed still is the GIS flag mapping. This is potentially the longest, most time-consuming part of the whole project. And this is something that CT Consultants is currently working on. The GIS flag mapping is basically flagging a certain parcel to be within like an HOA, for example, or within an NCA district. So any property that's flagged within a specific type of district or that would have a flag associated with it, so to speak, would that would indicate to the person who's creating a record or creating a request, if they select that parcel and there's an HOA fee associated with that, it'll automatically tell them. So it's very user friendly and that'll be a really, really great tool once it's all implemented. Unfortunately, right now, CT is still working on it, and that's kind of our holding. That's what's causing us the hold up right now. My side is pretty much done. Alex is pretty much done. Just testing the system and making sure there's no bugs and getting the bugs fixed if there are any bugs. And then waiting on the GIS product to be completed from CT. So that's where we are. I don't have a time frame on when we might expect to go live with this. It's contingent upon CT's progress.
Have we, thank you very much. I have a few questions, but have we given CT, a general expectation date of when we'd like them to complete that by?
I don't think so.
I'm just wondering if maybe we give them a realistic date and say, hey, we'd like, sometimes that,
Yeah.
versus leaving it open and then just kind of floats out there on a to-do list at some point. So, and then about the login, will we see the exact same thing residents will see? Does council have any other permissions, or will be pretty standard as far as when we log in, we see the same thing they would see?
You will see the same thing that the public will see.
Okay, awesome. And then will it be yourself and Alex that will have the primary access to doing these and both have knowledge of the same processes? Okay,
Yes.
so we got backups on that.
Mhm.
And then I guess the only other question I have is as far as I'm assuming this is all tied into our backup system. So if something were to fail over, or we would have backup so we don't lose permits or.
It's all cloud-based. All of their data is backed by their cloud. So I don't know that it is necessarily backed up by our backup system, but
Okay,
I can
but-
check.
Okay, just a safety measure in case, something were to fail. So that's all I have, but I appreciate the information. Thank you for bringing that forward. I don't know if there's any other questions.
I remember, per the approval, OpenGov was SOC 2 Type 2 approved, which they have redundant servers and things on the cloud. That's one of the things, but it also has to do with managing access and security and things like that. And I had two questions. One, at some point, can either planning and zoning or the services or another committee receive a demo of? Is that a dog barking?
Mhm.
It is.
I'm sitting here wondering, what's that noise?
It sounds like they're in the second floor.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and whatever committee you think is the right one and the right level of detail. I think planning and zoning may get some benefit, but potentially services as well. And then the third question comment I had was related to CT's work on the address specific, just a practical question. How are apartments and multi-unit or thank you. Multifamily housing units created
No,
as a single parcel.
I know they use the same database that the county uses.
Okay.
So I imagine it's the same format.
Okay, thank you.
That's a quick question.
Mhm.
If somebody needs a fence permit or they want to try and make their property commercial, can they do this all through the Sunbury, Ohio portal? Through exchanges, can they fill out the application and submit it online and then get a response and do really all of it?
Absolutely, that's the goal. Mhm.
One more question. Are there going to be additional work streams or?
Potentially.
Okay.
You mean like as far as the application?
Yes.
Potentially, yes. And that's what's really great about Alex knowing how to build these processes is he can, I don't want to say he can do anything, but I imagine he could create any type of process that OpenGov would allow.
Okay.
For example, I know we had internally spoke about requesting town hall. And maybe we could include that so that right now we have a very manual process, a paper-driven process to do that. So hopefully we can automate that within OpenGov.
I was thinking development lineage. So I know, think about like when something comes through as a prospective development and goes through the chain into zoning and then gets approved, and there may be a tweak. And so that's like iteration number one. And then council makes some changes, that's iteration two. And then there's all these toll gates along the way before dirt can actually be moved and when inspections occur. And construction plans and platting, and I assume that's something Alex wants to try to button up within this application. I don't know how you would actually denote that concept.
I'll bring that up to our project coordinator at our next weekly meeting and see what he says. I know that that is possible, but how we accomplish that, I'm not sure of the exact details, but let me get with him and find out.
Okay, thank
So
you.
are you talking about using it as a project management tracker of sorts then, where you can see your general timeline progress?
Not really a project tracker, but I think that like as items are being reviewed, the way I understood it from Dan White, it is this is going to be a great tool where if it requires somebody at the city to approve something, somebody at CT or the like to approve something, a developer to submit information, everybody kind of has visibility into what's happening. And then ultimately there's a virtual sign off. Today, these are physical signatures that then we log into OneDrive and things, but I think we have gaps in our processes related to when things change, and it ends up when we get into the field with developers, it's like, well, you said you were going to do this, and we said no. We reference different exhibits, and it's like we're talking different languages. It'd be great if we had this what I would call chain of custody or lineage of where a project is, what changed over time, who's involved in the approvals, and it mitigates risk on both sides, the private sector and the city.
Yes, and I know that definitely is possible. I've seen it in Hilliard's example of OpenGov. I've seen the lineage go from this iteration to that one. It's all within the same project, if you will. And you could see potentially years of data and conversations between various folks who have access to that project.
And that's the demo that Dan gave me. He gave me some practical examples. He was showing me, I think, Hilliard, where he was inputting information saying, developer, you need to tweak the road design, whatever stormwater design. It would send like almost like a work queue back to the developer, and they would have to remediate it, and then it would come back for a secondary approval. I mean, that whole lineage, in my opinion, today is happening primarily by email, and then sometimes gets appended to like a PDF or a file that we save in OneDrive.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, certainly when we talked to Hilliard, they demonstrated that there's a version control process in place, so we can make sure that we're, not only capturing the documents, but also being able to record, which one's kind of the most current version of that. I will work with Alex just to make sure that that piece is a little tighter, because you wouldn't know that process maybe as well as I might know that, but we'll do that for sure.
Thank you, Mr.
And then if there are limits on that, we'll certainly, as we brief the planning commission and others, we'll talk you through that a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're on for the, it looks like, Ms. Devon, this is going to be your show for the entire meeting, it looks like. So I think it moves us on to the budget amendments.
Yes, budget amendments. Starting on page 6 of your finance committee packet, I have a draft ordinance. This is not on your agenda this evening. We're hoping to get it on in the near future. I've listed all of the potential increases that we will need before the end of the year. Most of them fall within the general fund. And we can go through these one by one. A few of them are in the sewer fund. And finally, there is a single transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund. So if we would like to go through each of these, I'm more than happy to. Starting with the police for personnel services. This is primarily a shortfall because of the benefits line. We had a couple officers elect to join the insurance this year that we didn't budget for last year. So but that's basically what's driving the shortage there. We also had some electricity shortages in street lighting. The electric costs were higher than we anticipated. So that's that $5,000 there. We have 7,000 in planning and zoning for personnel services. This is mainly to do with wages and benefits. I budgeted the bare minimum amount for the salaries for these individuals and the benefits, and I just need to slightly increase that just to cover any potential overtime charges or things like that. Under mayor and administration personnel, the 30,000, this is 25,000 wages, 5,000 benefits, and this is primarily for the new position that we've developed for Carla. It's more than 30 that we're going to be paying her, but we had some extra overage in that fund built in anyway. And since we didn't hire an assistant city administrator until mid-year, we had extra money there as well. So we only have to increase that by 30,000 to account for the new director of planning and engineering. Contractual services, 180,000. I'm breaking this down, 100,000 in engineering, 50,000 in legal, and 30,000 for RETA fees. The engineering, I think you all understand why we need to increase that. We've had a lot of projects going on, and the fees for engineering haven't gotten any lighter. Same with legal. That's why we're increasing that 50,000. The RETA, as you know, RETA charges 3% of our collections. So when our collections are higher, which they are, and they're going to be for the rest of the year, we need to pay more money. So the budgeted amount was based on 4.8 million that we've budgeted for income tax collections. I do expect to receive anywhere between, I wrote it down here, 5.1 and 5.6 million before the end of the year, just in income tax revenue. And that's based on the past 6 months and looking back at prior year history and how we've fared from 6 months on to the rest of the year on how we collect where we are at this point of the year compared to where we end up at the end of the year. So based on where we are right now, I expect to collect, I think it's going to be more like 5.4 million. So that would be an additional 600,000 than we originally budgeted. So therefore, the RETA fees have to be increased to pay for RETA. Next on the list is legislative activities, personnel services for 6,000. And this was just a mistake that I had made. I didn't include the PERS match in that budget line. So that was my fault. I need to increase that line and made a note for future budget so that doesn't happen again. Under finance personnel services, this is primarily due to benefits, just some extra insurance costs that weren't totally budgeted. Street maintenance and repair personnel services, 9,000. This is due to benefits. Contractual services, 20,000, and the supplies and materials for 10. These are just lines that we are spending. We're trending to spend a little higher than I expected at this point in the year. Nothing specifically is driving these increases, but just higher costs in general. And then finally, the street maintenance and repair capital outlay, the 600,000. This is related to the 2024 street program. You may recall we did budget for the street program in 2024. However, we had to pay the 2023 street improvement money out of the 2024 budget due to timing of billing. So we have to increase the budget to pay for 2024. Now, if they don't bill us until 2020, then we'll be in the same situation next year.
They're going to bill us this year.
So all of those increases total a little over $1 million in the general fund. Going down to the sewer fund, we have some engineering costs primarily related to the wastewater treatment plant engineering. So I'm asking council to bump that up by 100,000. I feel like that's enough to get us through the end of the year. And a small amount increase on refunds. This is just due to customers overpaying and then requesting a refund rather than having that money sit on their account. We had a couple others request refunds this year, and I only budget about 1.5 $1,500, which isn't a lot, but we did have to increase that. And finally, the transfer to the debt service fund from the general fund, and that was an oversight on my part.
Is that the payment to Pulte?
For the transfer for the debt service, no, that is just based on, it's just debt.
Okay.
Mhm. I had calculated the debt correctly and it's been appropriated correctly, but the money is not in the fund. So I have to transfer the money from the general fund to the debt service fund in order to pay that. Now, according to our auditors, general fund transfers aren't required to be approved by council, but just for cleanliness and transparency, I just wanted to add that there.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions or go through any of these lines if you have more questions or would like some more detail.
I just a comment or question, I'm not sure. So so obviously the $78,000 is just, it was budgeted, it's just a movie transferring of money, so
Mhm.
that's fine. And then the carryover from street maintenance, that's just a timing thing, so that really has nothing to do with necessarily budgeting, but just the payment. So that leaves about roughly, $500,000 I was, in under budgeting. Do you think, are we too, when it comes to budgeting, are we too conservative on the budgeting cycle when we do that? And so we're having to play catch up mid-year, or is this just an unusual year that just weird things happen? Or is it something that we can learn from going forward and say, you know what, these are expenses we typically haven't really thought about that we may just start including? So
That's a
or
good
maybe it's a
question.
combination of all of them.
Yeah, I would say primarily it's due to conservative budgeting. I like to be as accurate as possible.
Mhm.
And in the example that I gave with the zoning wages where I budgeted the exact amount with some overtime that has happened, I didn't budget that in.
Mhm.
So if I had just taken maybe 10% more and budgeted that in at the beginning of the year, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Mhm.
So learning for the future, I'll definitely take some of these forward and adjust my budgeting going forward in future years. But some of it, like the engineering costs and legal costs, are things that we can't necessarily anticipate
Mhm.
15 months out.
Right.
So until they actually are incurred and invoiced, we don't know what they're going to be.
You don't know this year who's coming in next year to want to build something. And so there's a lot of guesswork involved
Yeah.
at that point, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of those fees that you mentioned, they do go through the pass-through account. So we do collect money from the developers. But if there's extra engineering that has to happen, like for example, for the Big Walnut Trail, engineering on that, it's not necessarily something you think about. You might budget for the trail, that's going to happen, but the engineering behind it, you may budget less than it actually is.
Mhm. Are we able to get so in that example, are we able to, so saying come budget time, we're budgeting for that. Are we able to reach out to the engineer and say, hey, we know we're going to need your services. Can you give us plus or minus 10% what you think those additional charges might be, to try to get a little bit more accurate? Or, and obviously I know you guys look at the 5-year trend, so that helps out a lot too, to see, okay, percentage wise, how much have we gone up each year or down each year, depending on that. So that helps. But do we have any opportunities to reach out to vendors with the projects we know and say, hey, what do you think the anticipated, so for budgeting purposes?
I can certainly ask, and if we know all the projects that we're
Right,
going to be
right.
going into, then
Sure.
that would be an easier question.
Here's where I think we get most off track with engineering, where I think Carla is gonna help tremendously. I would bucket these into a couple categories. We ask CT to do a lot of littler things like GIS mapping. I know we've seen a significant uptick. That actually helps close the gap in my mind, seeing that it's actually tied into OpenGov, because we have them doing that for various other initiatives as well, like building the base foundational layer. There's no real revenue source tied to that. So it's not development driven, but the ones that are long range are the most difficult. And I'll tell you some practical examples. Sunbury Parkway, the project peaks and valleys significantly based on the progress of others outside of us. And it's ODOT and the county. And where we saw a spike, I think at the beginning of the year, was related to bridge design and aesthetics. And it was hey, this needs to get in within 3 months. And so we throw a lot of resources at it. And when I say a lot of resources, it may cost us $15,000 worth of resources to get it right and get it done on time. Other ones are like East Granville Street, the widening. You know, we're investing in planning for that, and we're going to begin doing surveying, and that all goes towards engineering. But we don't have the revenue source yet to cover some of that, like the federal dollars or the state grants. So that I had a couple other ones. Wastewater treatment plant is a big one. And I know sometimes that goes into the sewer fund, but also, I mean, there's continuous improvements related to wastewater treatment plant funding that are difficult to plan for. And I think if we ask CT, I think they're going to tell us like, hey, you know what, take what we did last year and add 5% or something. I mean, the reason it's going up is because of us asking them to do things. And, you know, in services or parks or planning and zoning commission, we're directing them, hey, can you go run this report or go out and do a street survey or something like that? Like that all costs money and that adds up. And I think we're doing it all for the right reasons. Carla's, you know, leadership and her experience, I think is going to help tremendously with managing that relationship, plus others that we use in the engineering services world, like for the municipal building.
Sure.
There's been a lot of hands in the pot there.
Yeah, you met. So, yeah, I mean, those are great examples. I mean, I was just going to add, I mean, just adding the notion of design work associated with the tertiary filters, not something we anticipated when we started down the path with the wastewater treatment plant. You know, that got added on, but clearly that's going to be a benefit to us long term. So, you know, the work that we've been doing a little bit on the water reuse, again, probably nothing that was contemplated 18 months ago when the budget was put in, or whatever, 9 months ago, whenever the budget was put into place. So, yeah, it's a lot of things. And the mayor and I were walking through the most recent invoice from CT. And I mean, you see a lot of the projects, they're on the engineer's report, but then there are a lot of these additional requests that are coming along, like we're asking about power generation on site, looking at our zoning code, you know, and doing our zoning code update. I mean, that was another thing that we, you know, these are all things that we want to do. They're important to the city, but to the mayor's point, I think we'll be much better, much more effective at managing the relationship moving forward with the help of an internal engineer.
The other ones that pop up are the Safe Streets for All grant. It's getting ready to kick off. That's a federal grant. We were awarded the money. More or less, we're going to be reimbursed, if I'm not mistaken, from the expenses that we incur with CT. The other one is street striping on Sunbury Meadows Drive. You know, proof of concept that if we narrow the street, we improve safety. I mean, these are all things that we've talked about doing and want to do, but when it comes to pay the bill, I can tell you for a fact, anytime I sign checks, CT Consultants is the last one I sign. Because it's not only the thickest, but I go through like the line level detail and, you know, the pages are crinkled by the time because I'm squeezing the paper pretty hard. And, you know, I would love to come back and say, well, we can trim $40,000 out this year, but that is what that is going to mean. And Daryl and I talked about this. That will mean stopping initiatives. And one of them we were talking about was the GIS. And it's like, what are we going to do? Not roll out OpenGov and tie, you know, the data to parcels and things like that. We're mid-flight on many of these initiatives. So,
yeah, the survey work down at J.R. Smith Park to keep that moving. Lot 59 over here to keep that one moving. So, yeah, I don't think we want to stop any of them. I mean, when you start looking at every project, I think we realize, yeah, that's still a priority. We want to do what we can. I will just add, because it's on the agenda, it's on the council agenda for later this evening. The renewal of the contract for legal services. This 50,000 is not necessarily related to that. That was fully funded in the budget. This is just that we have engaged additional counsel on some other matters, very complicated documents, NCA reviews, you know, development agreements. I mean, they just require the TIF agreements, the school compensation agreement. I mean, they all require additional expertise. And that's what that's for, just to, because we know we've been incurring that expense. We haven't yet quite received the invoice on it, but I anticipate that we will be here soon. So that's what that is.
Thank you. I just want to make one other comment too. I know budgeting is extremely difficult. There are so many variables that come at you, not only when you're trying to do the budget, but throughout the year that come up. And so it is a very, very hard and challenging thing to do. And I think the unique situation Sunbury's, and it's not unique. I mean, a lot of cities go through it, but we're not at a process where we're maintaining the city. We are growing. And so there are going to be unexpected costs, there are going to be unknown expenses to help meet that growth. So I mean, though you try to be, like to be as close to a budget as possible. And again, we're not what I would call a mature city in the sense that we're not built out and we're not just having a side project here and there and fixing a road or whatever. We're growing, we're building, we're putting new stuff in. And that's a lot harder to predict than maintaining. So I think you do a great job. Thank you for this transparency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so as Ms. Steffen indicated, I mean, we'll put this on the next council agenda for the first reading and then begin that process.
Okay, any other questions about the amendments? If not, we'll go, I think, to the timeline.
Page 9 of your packet, I've drafted a budget timeline. This is just for visibility, so you can see what we have planned. Working backwards, if we start at December 4th, at the very bottom, I have the passage of the budget ordinance there. And then working backwards from that, I've got all of the required readings that we have. A potential third council meeting on October 30th. We'll have to, think about that when the time is right to see if we're going to have a meeting then, and will we read the budget at that time? Not certain. So we're going to start August 2nd is my first date here, where I will provide the budget worksheets to the department directors, and I'll be working closely with them to draft a budget. And we will have our very first draft budget discussion with Finance Committee on August 21st. So that is our very next Finance Committee meeting.
And let me just say for that one, I think what we have historically done is brought mostly the department director's requests. So that may be a little bit on the high end. Maybe we haven't done all the vetting yet of those other individual components. Because I think we did that last year and just wanted to clarify that that was the starting point, just so you could see what the directors are indicating they think the needs are going to be. So
I have a question. If the budget meeting passes on December 4th, does it have to pass with emergency language to be effective by the beginning of the next year?
It's a great question. It does not, because it's a budget ordinance. They are automatically.
All right, they don't have the 30-day waiting period then. Okay,
Correct. Mhm.
thank you.
Yep, so I didn't need any action or anything on this. It's just FYI.
Always good to know the timeline, so thank you.
Yep.
And then I think that takes us to our monthly review of the year-to-date comparison reports and the reconciliations.
Yep, so starting on page 10, we have the revenue report. We're halfway through the year as of the date that this was prepared. It's all through June 30th. So it's a good one to look at and see where we are and where we're going to end up, judge where we're going to end up. I already spoke about the income tax. It looks like we're going to be about 5.4 million, which is about 600,000 more than we've budgeted. So that's a great thing. We stand to collect more in real estate property tax as well, potentially $150,000 more in real estate tax. Interest income, of course, is more than double what we've budgeted at this point in the year. So that will only continue to rise. Those are the highlights there on the general fund. And in the other funds for the revenue, I don't have anything else to call out to bring to your attention. Going on to the expenses, this is the detail behind the budget amendment. Everything that we talked about previously on the proposed amendment comes from this information here. So I don't want to bore you and go through all of these again, but this will provide, this will show you where we're kind of falling behind a little bit or where we need to catch up and increase our appropriations. Don't think there's really anything that I need to call out there. So, I'll just leave it at that and happy to answer any questions that you have. I think I will just say one more thing. I am pleasantly surprised with our income tax collections. I think that having the subpoena program and the letter program were very good for the city. And on a side note, I am continuing to investigate that and look into ways on how we can continue that process for those non-responders. I don't have any information for you right now, but that is still coming. So yeah, we're in a good situation.
Stephanie, I do want to recognize you for that. We started isolating that issue, I think it was earlier this year, and you jumped right on top of it with reader representatives, brought, a high level summary to this committee and just continue to act on it. And the fruits of your labor are paying off, on the balance sheet, but I think just in fairness to all, especially the folks that are paying taxes, I think you're doing a great service for our community and being honest and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good.
One other thing that we may want to consider in the future is looking at our expenses that we do pay to Rita. Looks like we're going to be around 170,000 this year. We may be at that point where we're large enough, but not too large to think about hiring an income tax or having an income tax person within the finance group so that we can administer the tax within the city of Sunbury. I'm not saying we definitely want to do that, but it's just something that I would like to explore and discuss if council's open to it.
Do you think that'd be a full-time or could that be a part-time position?
I think it could be starting off as a part-time, I think. I have to think about it, but it could potentially just be a part-time position and, I could oversee that and, handle some of it as needed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but it's going to require some research on my end, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. And especially since we're spending, almost $200,000 a year just
Right.
to collect the money,
Right.
it's a significant amount.
All right. Anything else?
Of course, I have the check report for you to look at and the year-to-date income tax collections, which continue to increase. So, and I do have the reconciliation if you want to go on to that.
Sure.
On the very last page, page 2 of your agenda, I have, as I always report, the bank balances as of the end of the month, the outstanding checks. This month, I've added all of my reconciling items so you can kind of see what I'm looking at when we have a variance. So we have a book balance and a bank balance that's roughly $58,000 difference. Why is that? Well, all of those variances are listed under the reconciling items. The majority of those are the pension deductions that have been posted to the system but not paid out. It's a timing issue. It's all it is, which is what the majority of these reconciling items are. It's either timing, 90% of the time it's timing, 5 or 10% of the time it's something that was just missed and will be corrected in the next month. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I just again commend you, and I'm kind of just repeating myself maybe, but just the information you provide as far as it's the town's, it's the city's money, and we're spending it appropriately, and this shows that. But I think we can talk about it, but to actually see it and have it as open as it is I think not only a benefit to us but also the city. So thank you for doing that. Okay. Any other comments from staff, or how about council? Yeah.
About this time last year, the finance committee talked about increasing the budget in the council professional development area, specifically because we were looking at having someone join the Leadership Delaware. And I know you guys all got the same email from Melissa. And so I did apply for that Leadership Delaware and I was selected to join it. So I just wanted to just keep you guys posted on that. And it starts in September. I think it's about a 9-month program. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good for the city to have a representative there. And I plan to come back and keep you guys posted on what we do and what I'm learning and how Sunbury can benefit and how I can help other folks and how it all is going to work out. So just wanted to keep you guys posted on that because we talked about it about a year ago, so
Well,
it is going through and it's gonna start in September.
well, congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And I appreciate you doing that because
Yeah.
it's a time commitment and thanks for being a part of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other comments before we close this meeting? Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
We'll make the motion.
Thank you. What we can say here, I don't care. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, roll call.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes,
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
7 yeas, we are adjourned.
thank you.